before we start, was last week.
Yeah.
Last week, if I remember correct, we had a dark screen because of the load shedding. Remember?
Yeah, yes.
Yes, so I was just thinking maybe just to go through everything that we can just catch up before we go through again.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I know that the first part we saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as we go through, this I discussed the city of David and the Golden Spring, city of David, Jerusalem. There was the temple, that's not the whole Jerusalem they've got here. That we discussed, I remember that.
Yeah.
And then we've got under the Dome of the Rock, that was also under the Dome of the Rock. I remember we discussed that also. Today the Dome of the Rock is standing on top of it. Okay. Then we have the Karnak temple in Upper Egypt with walled inscriptions. We discussed the wall inscriptions and things that they see here and the messages they gave in, that they read this. This means some stuff to them. And then you can see there's a circle on top and doing things there and the spears. And I think I told you also that I think I told you that this thing that comes up like a stick, making a thing like that, is actually looks like a trumpet almost, because I saw the real things. I got it, and it's like a trumpet coming down like that. That is actually what it is. And I think this is this. Okay, this one's not so nice, but on the other pictures we had that thing like looks like a skew thing.
Yeah.
They also I think that is what they're trying to do, what to show there. Okay. Then the Karnak wall description, conquest of Judah. This is also, we spoke about it during the session last week. That is also, you can't actually see it very well. Not even in the photo here close by. You can just see a little bit. It's already damaged and everything from there, but you can see a little bit the inscription there that they spoke about. Okay, there it is, the whole city there. There you can see where they were. Very nice. Still with the dam, and that's the old city. Going back, going down. I think, yes, that's the last one. And then, we're going to talk today further about this. Okay, so, but in the same time, I'm going to switch over to chapter 10. And if you have that paper here that I gave to you, the other one, with the dates, so now and again I can just take it. Normally you will have it in front of you because it's the papers I give out. You will see that we got the areas and the time frames you will find in here, and you will be able to follow it. This is the time frames of the dynasties we got to deal with now. We had the kings, we saw the kings is also, and now even the time frames of the dynasties is also in here. Okay, so we're going to start off with Israel, the divided kingdom, and that's chapter 10. And I'm pushing against this thing behind me, so I can push this a little bit forward. Okay. So we look at the divided kingdom, chapter 10. Israel continued her course of rebellion against this and disregard of Yahweh for 200 years before she fell for the Assyrians. There was a disaster and it overtook Jerusalem at the hands of the Babylonians. You with me?
Yeah.
Now you see, I also gave you a picture like this. I think I did. Like this? Yes. Okay, you know, I tried my best, but I can't actually blow it up bigger because then you can't read what's standing here. So I can't blow it up. But again, the paper printouts will be given to you that you can see what it is. This is Old Testament chronologically arranged, and that is done like Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus. Those two are the law books and the historical books. The prophet books is just to explain to you, but that you also did in one of the previous subjects, the interpretation of the Bible. This is totally laid out. We actually went into that. So that's not supposed to be something new. Oops, I'm just come back to my screen this side. Right. Now the structure of the biblical accounts. In 1 Kings 14:21 and 29 to 30, we look at the Rehoboam reports on the kings of Israel and Judah. This is in a framework of an introductory and concluding formula. Okay, that's the way they do it. 1 Kings is set out, verse 50, 1 Kings 15, verse 1. It is a date of ascension according to the year of the contemporary king of Israel. The next one is 1 Kings 14, verse 21, is the age of the king of his ascension. And then 1 Kings 14, verse 21, and the duration of his reign. And 1 Kings 14, verse 22, the judgment of the religious character of the king's reign. That is all set out in Kings 15 and 14. Okay, that is set out there. But, let's look further. The report of the kings of Israel follows the formula of the kings of Judah, except that neither of the kings' ages at the times of their accession nor their mothers' names are included in the formula. That's in Kings 15, verse 25 to 32. So, there's a certain formula, you know, the whole Bible is laid out in formulas. It's interesting if you really go into the interesting side of the Bible to see, you know, even the numbers, your amount of verses is incredibly interesting. If you go into the original text writing, now I know the King James, the 1611 King James is also translated to give that same layout. It's very interesting that there's a certain numerologic, the way that in numbers is laid out in the whole Bible. It is impossible for any humankind to lay out one book, that thickness, for so many stories, but it's walking with that same pattern right through. The same pattern with each chapter, each book is right through. Now this is what's meant there also. There's a specific structure in the Kings, and that Kings is right through. Okay, that structure is even kept there. There's if you start counting and really there's people that did very deep studies, counting of your words and the amount of stripes and doikies of the Hebrew in the word, so many words, so many, you know, say exactly, it's extremely what would I say, interesting, this is what I'm looking for. It's extremely interesting to look at that. But that is really a deep study. But I read up quite a lot on that already, and I must say the people that did it is taking a lot of time to work into that and to see it. I've got short things that I look at, and it's totally blown my mind, because I wouldn't have even think about the book is laid out in that. But that is what they're talking about, a formula of the kings. Okay. There's a specific formula that is written in. Okay, that's what they're talking about. There's a specific way it was written in. The introductory or conclusion formula is sometimes missing in the case of Israel and Judah's kings. Both opening and closing formulas are absent in the report of Athaliah in 2 Kings 11. So you see there's differences. Judgment pronounced against the kings of Judah and Israel was and primary on their faithfulness to the worship of only Yahweh. Other kings of Judah were condemned for doing what was evil in the sight of the Lord. In 2 Kings 8 verse 18. Jeroboam, now we get to that kings. Jeroboam was denounced for establishing places of worship at Bethel and Dan. 1 Kings 12 verse 26 verse 33. The northern kings were criticized for not doing what was right in the eyes of the Lord. 1 Kings 15 verse 26 and 34 and 16 verse 33. Kings who worship foreign gods were described as following the way of the house of Ahab. 2 Kings 8 verse 23. So that is against, if you see that anywhere in your Bible, you know that is what it's meaning. You know, like we talk today like an idiom, that is what that meant. You know what I'm saying? It's the same like an idiom. If you read that, okay, that is what it is. And that is what you also look in the Bible. There's a lot of places that they talk about something and then you think, no, but how does it? But it is not a fact of a direct word. It's actually an idiom. That is a Jewish idiom. So if the Jew will read it today, even our today's Jews will read it, they will know this is an idiom. It's not like we must go and look, what does it mean? They don't know immediately. It's an idiom. There's a Jewish idiom. It means something else is what it is written. You understand? Translation is done.
Yeah.
It's a meaning to it, a different meaning to it. The way of the kings of Israel in 2 Kings 16 verse 3, Ahab and his son Ahaziah symbolize the evil rules in Israel in 1 Kings 22 verse 55 and further. Now we look at the political conditions in Israel and Judah. That is from 922 to 842 before Christ. That is now starting with the dynasties. Now we start with the kings. Now we step over to the dynasties. It was first the judges, then the kings, and now the dynasties. Now we go further. We look at the dynasty of Jeroboam of Israel. Now come back to, what did I do now? Come back to that one, Jeroboam of Israel. At the same time it will be Rehoboam from Judah. The two is ruling at the same time. So there's a Judah tribe and the Israel tribes. Okay? We will look at that. His son Nadab, we see they've got it a little bit different. The dynasty of Jeroboam, they got it in a book. They got it a bit different times. So I don't know, can't tell you this is right and this is wrong, but it's more or less the same times, okay? So I don't know how they got, what they put here with it, I don't know. But they got it here as, in our book, it is from 922 to 900 before Christ. On this chart it is from 931 to 910 before Christ. So it's at least overflow, these two is at least in the more or less correct time. His son Nadab succeeded him, that's not for Jeroboam. Asa was ruling in the second year of Judah, and he was slain by Baasa in 1 Kings 15 verse 25. Nadab's assassination came while he was besieging Gibbethon, a Palestinian city. The dynasty ended with the slaughter of all his heirs. So that dynasty of Jeroboam totally, what would I say, disintegrated because all his heirs were slaughtered. Okay. So we step over to the next one. The dynasty, I'm on the wrong screen. Sorry, I just want to say my screen is not moving here. On the wrong screen. So, going back to the right screen. The dynasty of Baasa of Israel. Baasa, see we did those two now. Baasa succeeded the son of Eli. Baasa succeeded the son of Eli. Okay? Because it's actually the other way around. Eh? Baasa, a son of Eli, that was in 877 to 876. So 872 to 876. So yeah, again this is most probably all in that same frame that they come in. Okay, let's see. You know, there's a little ones in between. Yeah. Eli reigned for 2 years, and was overthrown and assassinated by his captain Zimri. There we got it. By his captain Zimri. It's the next one. And he lay drunk in a palace at Tirzah. So he was drunk and he was assassinated by his captain Zimri. Eli. Okay? He killed all the males of the royal household and he ruled only 7 days. Zimri. Omri, there's the next one. Omri, commander of the army, was made king by his soldiers. He went to the palace in Tirzah, that's the same place, and when Zimri saw him, he set the palace on fire and he died in the flames. So Yeah, that is those lots, okay? So it's in the same time frame. As I said, that is also still in the same time frame. That's all of them there. While Baasa was king, Baasa coming back there, Israel was at war with Judah. In 1 Kings 15 verse 16 to 22, Baasa began to fortify the town of Ramah, which was located in the territory of Judah. Ash of Judah did not have sufficient forces to resist Baasha, but he secured the aid of Ben-Hadad of Damascus with what was left of the silver and gold of the temple. Ash, that's Judah. You see? There's Judah. Rehoboam, there's Judah. Ash is there.
Yeah.
Okay. On the other side. When Ben-Hadad attacked Galilee, Baasha was forced to remove his troops from the southern border to defeat against the Aramean invasion of Ash. Ash took the stones and the timbers, everything. Now you can see these two was now fighting against each other.
Mm.
You see how now you can see the kings. And this is Israel king and Judah king. Now you can see how they was fighting against each other. Abijah and Asa of Judah. Abijah and Asa of Judah. You can go, they reigned between an Abu 915 to 873. Yeah, more or less. 915, 873. So more or less before Christ. Most of the treasures of the temple and places were lost when Shishak of Egypt invaded Judah in the 5th year of Rehoboam. Shishak invaded Judah of Egypt, invaded Judah in the time of Rehoboam. Now remember, we don't have Egypt also here.
Mm.
Okay, so they invaded Rehoboam. The southern kingdom had a heavy downfall. Rehoboam reigned for 17 years. And then succeeded Bahiah. He was succeeded by Bahiah. And his son reigned for 3 years. Bahiah had 14 wives who was born him 22 sons and 16 daughters. How would you like such a nice family? A big family.
Yeah,
I don't think I was able to handle it. He was crucified by the author of Kings. 1 Kings 15 verse 3. So, not crucified, I'm sorry. He was criticized. He was criticized by the author of Kings. I just want to say it doesn't make sense. Okay, he was criticized by the author of Kings. That's now Abijah was criticized by the author. Abijah was succeeded by Asa in 1913 to 873. There we see it. Before Christ. He was a loyal supporter of Yahweh because he removed pagan deities and practices from the land. Is that here by Asa? So here they also did something good in the Judah side. That was in 1 Kings 15 verse 12. He removed Makkah from the position of queen mother because she had made the image of Asherah. Now again, she was a queen mother, position of a queen mother, so that was also abolished. So there was something good that Asa done in the side of Judah. Okay? Jehoshaphat and Jehoram of Judah. Jehoshaphat and Jehoram of Judah. It's the next two. Asa was succeeded by his son Jehoshaphat in 873 to 442 before Christ. He reversed the relations with Israel and made an alliance with Ahab that brought peace between the two kingdoms. He sealed the alliance. Ahab's daughter, Atashlish, was given to Jehoshaphat's son Jehoram. Jehoram is the next one. So that daughter, Atashlish, was given to the daughter of Arab. Okay? Joram to Joram. Okay? Ahab's daughter, yeah. Jehoram, 849 to 842. Strange that the days is not corresponding totally. Jehoram succeeded Jehoshaphat and had his 6 brothers put to death when he became king. So, yeah, that was a good one. And there, yeah, he comes and he totally messed up everything. Joseph was quite a good thing, good guy. And there he came and he was not scared his brothers take over, so he killed all his brothers when he became king. Jehoram's reign was criticized by the writer and his attitude. He also attributed to the failure of his marriage to the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel in 2 Kings 8 verse 18. Jehoram was not a military leader. Now that is a problem. And unable to quell the revolt of Edom and therefore lost the seaport, industries of Ezon Geber and mines and Libnah on the Philistine border also gained freedom from Judah. Now they are free from Judah also, so he lost quite a lot there. Now we take the dynasty of Umrah of Israel. We go back to Israel at 876 to 875 before Christ. We're going here again. Okay, we stop there, so we're going here. So we see that's all falling back in zigzag into it, okay? Yeah. At the same time, from there, we're going to this side. Zigzag onto the 2. That you can see there's the 2 sides that's working. Because now if you just read through the book, you don't see the 2 sides. So it's very difficult to follow. Yeah, so the 2 sides that you can see what is Israel and what is Judah's side, okay? Omri ruled 6 years at Tirzah and then built a new capital for Israel. That was in 876 or 869. He bought the hill from Shemer and named the new city Shemeron, Samaria. That is Samaria, okay? Shemeron is Samaria. His son Ahab there, Ahab, completed the construction of the city and built the famed Ivory House. 869 to 850 before Christ in 1 Kings 22 verse 39. Remember, we spoke about the ivory palace earlier on, previous chapters. Remember? Right. Omri and Ahaz failed in leading the people and served Yahweh. So him and his father, those 2 failed in serving Christ. Okay? Yet, Omri's fame as a political ruler spread and he was recognized by other nations as a capital leader. Ashur-nasir-pal, I don't know how to pronounce the name, ruled Assyria, and Mesha was king of Moab. Okay, he's not up here. He's not up here. Yeah, they're not up here. Ahab is remembered because of his assassination with Elijah. Association with Elijah, and he was married to the evil Jezebel, the daughter of Etubal, king of Tyre. So, Ahab, there we are in Israel's side, was married to the evil daughter of Etubal, the king Tyre. So there you see very clearly the pagan stuff that's coming into Israel. You know, as again show it. Jezebel was devoted to Baal worship and caused Ahab to build a temple in Samaria. So there's the Baal temple. Later on here we will see that temple. I've got it later on there. I will go through that later on. This brought opposition from the prophet Elijah and was Elijah was loyal to Yahwism. Ahab lost his life in battle with the Syrians at Ramoth Gilead. Okay? So that is where he lost his life. Ahab's son Ahaziah succeeded him. Ahab's son Ahaziah succeeded him. Remember, back to the Israelites. 850 to 849 before Christ. He worships the Philistine god Baal-zebub. Baal-zebub. Lord of flies. Now, I mean, that is the last Lord I want to worship. Baal-zebub means the Lord of flies. I went really and look, is it really what it means? Yes, Lord of flies. That's the Lord's last one I want to worship. This is the Lord of flies. But this Lord of flies was of Ekron. This Baal-zebub, Lord of flies of Ekron. There must have been a lot of dead animals and stuff that must have stayed very much. The flies must have been very much there. But because why do you have such a God? I really don't know. Ahaziah was succeeded by his brother Jehoram. A king by the same name occupied the throne of Judah. Jehoram. Judah is Jehoram. Okay. Towards the end of Jehoram's reign, Ben-Hadad of Damascus was murdered by his servant Hazael, and soon attacked Ramoth Gilead, and Hazael threatened the kingdom. And Hazael seriously wounded King Jehoram of Israel. 2 Kings 8, verse 28 to 38. Okay. So yeah, they're also killing out. Just think by yourself how the families is killing each other, and yeah, we find even today in other side of, not in the same manner, but jealousy. But we do find in today's life there's a lot of families now that is killing out the whole family if there's depression or poverty struggles. There's a lot in the news when the guy just go and wipe out his own family. It seems like, I'm not just suggesting, it seems like this is normal there, but then if you don't like it, you just wipe up all your whole family. I mean, that's the monarchs, you know? And it's, yeah, I don't know how they can do it. I can't see that I touch any of my family members, you know? But yeah, it's happening right through the Bible. You could hear they're killing this and killing this. But yeah, it's going out. But yeah, God will be with us. That something like that doesn't happen to us. Hazael affected the kingdom of both Israel and Judah throughout his reign for almost 40 years. That's Hazael. Okay, for almost 40 years. Taking from Jehu, that was in 842 to 850 before Christ, all Israel's land in the east and the Jordan River in 2 Kings 10 verse 32 to 33. Now we look a little bit on Elijah and Elisha. Elijah was seriously loyal to Yahweh about 850 before Christ. Now that we know. He was really very, very serious with God. That is a prophet, eh?
Okay.
Ahab readily compromised his religion for political opportunities. Now Ahab, so in other words, he rather got the political stories and get fame in the rich as to go with God. So be careful that we don't do the same today. I would rather go with this group because here in this group I can get money. But I have to stand off a little bit, not go every Sunday to church, or I mustn't be so serious about God. I must slip a bit on that. I can go to church every but I must slip a bit on the serious of God and things like that. Then you must know you're on the wrong way.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. The main thing is, it is or God or not God.
Yes.
You can't stand in the middle. Okay? And that we see with this Old Testament going for. You can't stand in the middle. It's or the one or the other one. Okay? It is definitely again. Or the one or the other one. So, but Ahab was rather for his political sides, for the opportunities, than for his religion. So he compromised his religion. Elijah announced to Ahab the coming of an extensive drought in 1 Kings 17 verse 11. Now that drought was there because of Ahab that made the wrong decision. We're going to see it just later. Because of that, Elijah took refuge by the brook of Kerith and was fed by ravens until the brook dried up. He was fed by ravens. Now look at that. He was fed by ravens. God sent ravens to feed Elijah. And there was water. I will show you just now the pictures. I will show you everything. I think I'm first going to finish and then I'm going to show you the pictures. Because we were working on this paper. Or maybe I'll just do this one and then I will show you. He then went to Zarephath, where he stayed by a widow and a son. At that house there were 2 miracles. Now again I say, if you read all the books that I right in the beginning say let's read, this will be knowledge, you will know about it. They supplied of food during the entire drought. There was a supply of food out of 1 jar of meal and a cruse of oil. And right through the drought they had food. So that thing was constantly filled by Christ. Just like Christ filled the wine jar, the water into wine, this guy, and the fishes that he also gave more fishes and bread, this jar and this cruse was constantly filled for a whole time of drought. It wasn't hungry. It's fantastic. The reviving of the widow's child through prayer when he became ill and died. And we know the miracles that Jesus did.
Yeah.
And then, so, who's Jesus? Is Jesus not the same God?
Jesus, yeah.
He's the same God, the same miracles. So Jesus is God.
God, yeah.
He's God. Elijah declared that Ahab was the cause of the drought because he has turned to Baalism. That was said in 1 Kings 18 verse 17. So that drought that they suffered was because of Ahab. Because of Ahab, he turned to the Baalism. So he decided, remember, his prophets was more worth than God. And again we see God's punishing them. Isn't that what we see right through the Bible so far, right through the Old Testament already? Every time these people are not doing what they must do, he punished them. In today's life, I'm thinking of things, there's earthquakes, tremendous earthquakes, there's storms, water storms and things. At the moment there is a lot of people that die. I'm not talking about one and two, I'm talking of thousands. I'm talking of thousands. You know about that.
Yeah.
On both sides.
Yeah.
If I may say, both those places as Muslims. What does it tell you? I'm not going to say anything else. I leave it up to you to answer that question. Okay? I think all of us know what it is. So, please, those places is biblical places, those areas. It's the same places that's here in the Bible. The same places that's in the Bible. Mm-hmm. Isn't God maybe talking to them? Isn't God today still talking in the nature that's going on and they're not listening? Because they don't know how God's talking, the way God spoke in the Old Testament? Just a question. I can leave the answer up to you. Alright. So, Elijah is famous for challenging 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of goddess Asherah to a contest on Mount Carmel. 1 Kings 18 verse 19. Just think now. Yeah, okay, he's going to try that amount of prophets and 450 prophets and 400 prophets of the one of Baal and 450 of the one and 400 of the other God with a small letter. So 850 prophets he's going to try now. Now they think, okay, their God is going to win. Oh, they got the shocking surprise. Since the worship of each involved an animal sacrificing contest to determine the true God was to involve the consuming of sacrificial offering by fire. So we know what happens. The prophets of Baal lost the sacrificial contest, and were destroyed to show further that Baal had no power to protect them. Because we know the fire came from heaven and they were burned. The false prophets was responsible for leading the people into idolatry and causing their punishment for unfaithfulness to Yahweh. He's there. He's alive. He's there. He's so alive. Pardon me. Elijah lost his courage when Jezebel threatened revenge. He fled to Mount Horeb, that is the Mount Sinai, where he was instructed by Yahweh to anoint Hazael as king of Syria, Jehu as king of Israel, and Elisha as his own successor. He was informed that Yahweh still had 7,000 faithful worshippers. So that was in 1 Kings 19 verse 1 to 17, where he started. Elijah said, but there's nobody there anymore. How's he going to do it? You feel alone if you read the whole story. And then God said, no. There's still 7,000 faithful followers. What does the 7 means? Fulfilled. It's fulfillment of Christ, of God. They are still there. And there's a miracle waiting for him. So, Elijah was introduced to Elijah's successor when Elijah passed by him and cast his mantle upon him in 1 Kings 19, verse 19. His ministry started at the end of Ahab's reign, so more or less there. Okay? In 869 to 850 before Christ, to the beginning of Jehovah's reign. Jehoahaz, not Jehovah, Jehovah reign. There, beginning of his reign. So those are all in between, eh? Beginning of his reign. 801 to 786 before Christ. Elijah's departure was taken alive into heaven in a chariot of fire. That must have been one awesome thing to look at. Really. And a whirlwind. So it went through with the chariot. Isn't it fantastic? I would have, if I could see something like that. But only one person saw it. And that was Elisha. Only Elisha saw it. And what's the fantastic thing? Even his clothes, his mantle, felt it was not worth it to be taken up to him, with him into heaven. Even that was chucked down. He was filled with a new, glorious, whatever God's going to give us, a new body, without sin. Okay? That is totally, even our clothes will stay behind. Even that will stay behind. So Elisha took Elijah's mantle, called on the name of the Lord, and struck the waters of Jordan, which parted before him. There again, the water parted again.
Yeah.
It's the second time. Which was the other one?
The Red Sea.
2 Kings 2, verse 13 to 14 is this one. So we got there also 2 that shows it. He was accepted by the sons of the prophet of Gilgal, Bethel, and Jericho as Elijah's successor. He also witnessed miracles of that Elijah did. So he also did quite a lot of miracles. Now before we go on further, I would just first like you to go through this. Okay. That was a biblical Tirash, that is the area. That was a biblical Tarshish, whatever. That is the ruins of the Omri palace, the palace of Tirzah. We spoke about that also. That's the palace that they got there. That is Gibeah. I could not find a fortress of Gibeah, but they say it's found. I don't know where they found it because I was looking for it. I couldn't get the fortress, but that is Gibeah. Okay, so it must be here somewhere. I couldn't find it. I really looked for it. I couldn't find it. a Wadi called in the Jordan desert, that is in the Jordan, that believe that this is where Elijah was hiding, somewhere here. There's a little building there now, they built a place there for the honor. Now that is now the place that they built there, to honor that. Okay, that is where they reckon he was hiding. Pardon. Now he was also in a brook of the Cherith. Now what that means is that it is a small stream running. Now they say it is more or less there. Now if you look at this area, there is Pala, and there's Amathus, there's Pala, there's the two rivers. So that must be somewhere around here on the map. That's the Jordan River, somewhere around here. That he was hiding. Yeah. A brook is a natural freshwater stream. It is smaller than a river. The brook Corinth was located in western Jordan, in the Jordan Valley, and flowed into the Jordan River. Cherith means cutting or separation, which probably refers to the geological nature of the stream. It has been described as one of the wildest ravines of this rugged region. Okay? There you can see there was the river was there. Most probably I see there's people, so there's most probably still a river. But it dries up. There was just a very nice picture that I've got here. There's a picture where they painted where he was sitting with the ravens feeding him. There's got a mouth in the stream. Okay. It's just an illustration. Just think by yourself if there's ravens coming to feed you. Just have that picture. When I saw the picture, I think that was something nice to have that idea. Think about the ravens sitting around you and they bringing food to you. That's what they said happened. The ravens brought food to you, and there's the water. So God really, in danger, gave him water and food. So he was definitely called. The Baal temple that I spoke about a little bit earlier, the temple of Baal Salmon, that's the Baal temple. The temple of Baal Salmon was an ancient temple in the city of Palmyra, Syria, dedicated to the Canaan sky deity of Baal Salmon. What I call the temple earliest place dates to the late 2nd century before Christ. Its altar was built in 115 AD, and the temple was substantially rebuilt in 131 AD. This is a Baal temple. Now, if this is the only way they could get in that area, if this is the exact temple they're talking about, I'm not sure. But this is what the Baalism temple looks like. Okay. This is in that area, so it can be the right one, but it's also possible that it's just one in that area, but it's not the same one they're speaking about here. Okay. And that is the last one on that one. Yeah, that is number 10, and then we go back to that one, where we were. Okay. I just want to see the time. Okay, I can go on with this. From Jehu's revolt to the fall of Samaria. From Jehu's revolt to the fall of Samaria. Jehu's revolt was in 842 to 722 before Christ. There's Jehu. Yeah. Jehu was captain in the army under Jehoram. Jehu was anointed as king by one of the sons of the prophets who had been sent by Elijah in 2 Kings 9 verse 1 to 10. Jehu was commissioned to smite the house of Ahab, the master, to avenge the prophets of Yahweh who had been put to death as a result of Jezebel's influenza. So with other words, he actually went out to go and kill those people that kill the others. That kill the prophets of Yahweh. Well, okay, I thought he's coming this way. So they went out to kill the prophets. The people. They went out to kill the people that killed the prophets of Yahweh. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it was ordered by Jezebel influenced them to do that. He also established a dynasty which extended through the 5 kings and lasted almost a century. He got rid of the unwanted Baal god, and that had a negative effect on the political side. Now, now again we had Asher that they say was, we know that, Asher was the one that they said they stopped here in Judah side, all the Baal gods. Now this side is Jehu again. He went out and he all the Baal stuff. But what happened when he did that? His whole political side went for a loop, as we would say. There was problems, okay? Because he's endures a religious purge, much as the capital leadership has been exterminated. So there was because of this negative thing of killing the gods, it had a negative thing of his political side. Okay. Israel was divided in issuing eliminating Baalism, and therefore not all the citizens supported Jehu, and the country was further weakened. Now can you think about it? Because they don't want to worship Baal, the city weakened. So we will think that if they actually, in this case, we will think that if they turn to God more, it will be strengthened. Just the opposite. But they can turn to Baal. We're coming back to Ahaziah and Athaliah of Judah. There's Ahaziah there. There's Amaziah there. But that's Ahaziah that got it here on the Israel side, not on Judah's side.
Yeah.
And Athaliah,
It's on Judah's side.
you've got Amaziah.
That's on top of Joash.
Oh, there they got right on top.
Yeah.
Athaliah, they got the two. Oh, they got two similar names here.
It is.
Yeah. So they got on the Judah side. Yeah, they got the Judah side Ahaziah and Athaliah. Okay, we're looking at those two. Of Judah in 842 to 839 before Christ. Ahaziah was 842 before Christ, who was also called Jehoahaz. Ruled only 1 year before he died in Judah's purge. His mother was Athaliah, the daughter of Ahab, and Jezebel, daughter of and Jezebel. Was Jezebel? Oh, Jezebel is not on here. It's the mother. So you see what's happening here. Coming back. They're mixing. But it's Judah and Israel, so those two is actually God's people, but they're messing around with their beliefs. So, Judah and Israel. Athaliah reigned for 6 years before her son's death. Her reign interrupted the Davidic dynasty in Judah. That's exactly what I said just now. They're going over. Promoted the worship of Baal Milcart, after the example of her mother Jezebel. You know, I wanted to look at Baal Milcart, what if it's a different Baals, and I didn't do it. So I will see if I can find it to show it next week. Or tomorrow. I forgot to look that one up. The Jehoistic party seized control in Jerusalem and Israel, and the Baalists exercised the influence in Judah. So now it's coming over to this side. Athaliah destroyed all the male heirs of the Davidic dynasty, except the infant Joash, whom Jehoiada, the priest, and his wife had hidden. Are you looking for something?
I was looking for a pen. I couldn't find it.
Did you lose your pen?
I was holding it here. I think I just misplaced it. It's fine.
Masa, can you get your one?
No, it's okay.
Is it okay? Now look at Amaziah. We're going to go down to that one, Amaziah. From there to there, we spoke about Joash. Now we're going to go Amaziah. Now remember, he was still young. Amaziah 800 to 783 before Christ. He was 25 years old. Okay, now remember, Joshua was 7 years when he actually became king.
Oh, okay.
Okay? I didn't say what, I skipped one now. Yeah, I skipped that. Joshua and Amaziah of Judah. Did I do that? Did I tell you? 6 years after the male heirs of the Davidic dynasty were killed, Joshua were crowned as Athalish and slain in the uprising of Jehoiada and mercenary soldiers. Soldiers authority Baal cult, but the diversity of religious loyalty required the posting of service to guard the temple. Jehoiada and his followers publicly pledged themselves to Yahweh, and the people renewed their loyalty to the Davidic dynasty. Joash, again, where is he now? Joash there, Joash, 837 to 854 was only 7 years old when he began to reign, and reigned for 40 years. Jehoiada acted as regent of the kingdom and as tutor of the king. That we read for 2 Kings 12 verse 2. The temple required and dishonesty of the priest, the temple repaired and the dishonesty of the priest who had been taking funds from the temple collection box was stopped. Okay, so the temple was repaired, and we know about stealing from the funds. In today's time, there's a lot of fraud. But anyway, this was the temple, and they stole, or they took funds from the temple. I don't know if it was allowed to, but if they stole it, but they collected money, that was stopped. Also by Joash. Okay? 2 Kings 12, 5 to 6, and then Joash's reign ended when the assassination of some of his palace servants. Now, if you go back to the pictures I showed in previous chapters, you'll remember they had the big place where the king sit, and normally where the court is and everything. If you remember, there was a big court area where they normally is part of the palace. So that people can come in there, and that is why they kill him. Okay, that was easy to go. 21 Kings 12 verse 20 verse 21. So that court place wasn't totally separate from the palace. Amaziah, there we go, was 25 years old and was the son of Joshua. So Amaziah was the son of Joash. Okay, these are two off. He faced difficulties from the beginning of his reign and put to death those who killed his father, but he spared their children. And that was something that I actually took note of. He killed the people. When normally they go and they kill the whole family. They only killed so there will be the males, and the children was kept. He didn't kill the children. He didn't kill the children. 2 Kings 14 verse 5 to 6 and 2 Chronicles 25 verse 3 to 5. Pardon. During his reign, the walls of Jerusalem was broken down. That was during his reign. And the gold, silver, and temple vessels was confiscated. Amaziah's death is also a court conspiracy. So there was also a court conspiracy in the palace, and he was also killed there. And 2 Kings 14 was 17 to 20. So in the same type of manner, his father was killed, he was also in the court palace killed. Okay? A serious emergency. Salmaneser the third reigned in 859 to 842 before Christ. He ruled Assyria, and Jehu 842 to 850 before Christ ruled Israel. So this is where are they? They're not here. Salmaneser is not there, but Jehu is here. Yes, Jehu, but I don't see Salmaneser. Okay, so there's Jehu. Okay.
This guy, I think they say it's he was from Assyria.
Yeah, it's from Assyria, it's not from this group. Yeah. You're quite right. You're quite right. You're quite right. On a black obelisk found in Namrud in 1840. Now we know that this obelisk was found by Sir Henry Layard. You know what the black obelisk looked like that we have pictures already from? Showed that Jehu was bowing before Shalmaneser and presenting gifts and silver of gold. Okay? But we had it in the previous one. Shalmaneser subdued Hazael of Damascus and the rulers of Tyre. Sidon and Israel decided to pay tribute rather than face the Assyrian army. Shalmaneser campaigns other areas left the Syrians free to molest the Israelites during much of the reign of Jehu, and that caused that Jehu lost Israel's land in Transjordan. 2 Kings 10 verse 32. So this Shalmaneser is not on the map here. I don't know. Oh, he's in another area. Sorry, he's in another area. He's in another area. So that is why Jehu was then, again, the other area, what he was not supposed to mix into, he mixed into. Okay? And that caused that there was no things loose, and they were loose and going on, and yeah, all the negative things started. So, Jehoash and Jehoash. Jehoash and Jehoash. There the two are. Okay? Jehoash in 815 to 801 before Christ succeeded his father, but was unable to strengthen his country and lost against the oppression of Hazael. Other side, the one that's not on here. Okay? The one that doesn't belong. Okay. Hazael forces subdued some of the cities in the plain of Philistia and required Judah to pay the enormous tribute. There, now Judah is also in problem. Ben-Hadad the second succeeded his father Hazael in the king of Damascus. The new king of Assyria, remember we talked about all that, that's not part of this, is Assyria. Adad-nirari the third, 811 to 783. Now Adad-nirari must be here somewhere. See, not here, no, he's also of the other part. He's also from Assyria, yeah. The new king of Assyria, Adad-nirari III, 811 to 783 before Christ, invaded the Aramean state in 802 before Christ and broke the power of Damascus, and his king Ben-Hadad II. Ben-Hanirari was succeeded by Shalmaneser the fourth, 783 to 733 before Christ. The Esarhaddon the third was succeeded, 733 by 754 before Christ, and the next one was Ashuri-nari the fifth, 754 by 746 before Christ. I'm not going to go into that. Sandelius just mentioned, who was unable to maintain the control of Syria and Canaan, because this is not the Israel side, that's the other side. Jehoshaphat, 801 to 786 before Christ, restored a degree of power to Israel. There, coming back to Israel, and recovered all the cities lost by his father. So his father, Jehoash. 2 Kings 13 verse 25. And let's see what's it done. Up and on again, still down. Israel's and Judah's resurgence, that was 786 to 742 before Christ. Jehoshaphat's son succeeded him, namely Jehoram number 2. So there's number 1, there's number 2. Okay? Joash's son succeeded, okay, Jeroboam battles was not described, but he regained the Transjordan land north of the Jarmah, which had been lost in the Arameans. So he regained quite a lot of the land back. It sounds like he got everything back. He also pushed the Moabites and the Ammonites from Israel's territory, so he pushed them away also. So there again, we've got somebody again, okay, now we got that one, and we got a few of the, I think 2 of the top Jehu, and okay, we've got this Asa here. So there is Elijah, there's some of them that's in God, that you can see there's a difference. And then, oh, now I've got everything again going wrong, and everything is Dibakar. Okay? Ayah, 783 to 724 before Christ. The 2 kings approached the prosperity and its extent to the kingdom under David and Solomon. Don't have it here. He was also named Assyria. But they don't want to have it here because they were outside coming in, I think. he was chosen by all the people of Judah. It is Assyria or Aya. It's the same person, but he's not. What's his name? There's it. Okay, Syria. He was successful in campaigns against the Arabs and Edomites. He had leprosy during the latter part of his reign and had now withdrawal from public life, but he continued to heed the oppositions to Assyrians, and he achieved wealth and power for Judah. So in his sickness, he still went on. He still went on. Okay? So that was also quite a good person that pushed through with his sickness and all. His leprosy is explained in 2 Chronicles 26 verse 16 to 26 of Yahweh's punishment because of the kings having burnt incense in the temple. Remember we discussed, I think last week or the week before, a session before, about the kings that burns incense and they may not, it was the prophets. You remember? Okay. Now again here, he was punished because the kings burnt incense in the temple. The burning of incense was prerogative of the priests and may have indicated a break between them and the king. Okay? That was a punishment. He again did something God did not give them permission to do. And that was the punishment, the leprosy, that you read in 2 Chronicles 26 verse 16 to 26. Okay? About 750 before Christ, we read in 2 Kings 15 verse 1, the reverse standard version, the revised standard version, the Jotham, the king's son, was over the household, governing the people of the land. Jotham served as regent until Uzziah's death about 742 before Christ. There. Till his death. Okay? The 18th century prosperity was not a total blessing. In the middle of the century, Amos and Uzziah denounced inequities which existed between the wealth and the poor. Now just listen a bit to this. How far this is coming already. Poor farmers was at the mercy of money lenders. What are we doing today? Not only farmers, we're taking stuff on credit. It's exactly the same thing. Okay? Drought and crop failures threatened. What is happening today? There's a lot of droughts right over the world, and there's a lot of animals that's died because there's drought. Exactly the same. Loss of land. Well, we know there's a fighting for land and going on. That's not actually, we won't go into that. Enslavement. Where does this enslavement come from? It's coming from before Christ's time already. We can't say it's just one nation.
Yeah.
We can't say it's just, they can be from both sides. It's coming from, it's already spoken of in the Bible side. Weights and measures were falsified. What are we seeing these days?
Yeah.
Still going on. And that was, as I say, it's before Christ already. Bribery was widespread. The purge of Jehu has not restored justice according to government law. So, this stuff we see today is going on for a lot of time already. And what's happening now is just, it's getting worse because the people is more, so it's getting worse and they're getting worse and getting more violent. But what is happening is because evil is just coming more in the setting in. The evil people is just, or the evil, now can we say the evil spirit is just more active in today's life?
Yeah.
And we as Christians, as God people, must stay out of it as far as, no, we must just, I can't say as far as possible, we must just stay out of it. No, we must just stay out of it. I do not say as possible. Yeah, we must stay out of it, not going into that. I'm not talking about taking something on credit, because these days you can't buy a house, you can't buy a car if you don't take it on credit. But that is was one of where it came from. But bribery, that you stay out of it. It's not part of you. And then the shrines of Israel were busy and lavishly supported by worshippers. The Canaanite fertility cult has been combined with forms of Jewism. So God didn't like that. That was in Hosea 1-4. So now this cult was also informed by Judaism, the same that Baal did. Rituals and sacrifices was practiced widely, but morally was eliminated from religion except for the accusational voice of the prophet like Amos, Hosea, Isaiah, and Micah. So they was warned. They were warned. They were there to tell them, listen, this is not right, this is not right. This is the prophets. No prophetic rebuke were forthcoming. So the prophets, in other words, were slowly phasing out because they didn't listen to them. So that prophetic people totally phasing out. Phase out over the years. Now what's nice, when we stop with this Old Testament World Book, you will see the following between the testaments, how it totally phased out what happened. Because there's that, between the two testaments, that's era, God is not speaking to the people anymore. And now God's again coming in with Jesus. We start speaking because God's Spirit, when He was totally speaking to the people, slowly put up because the people didn't live, and those people died, and there was nobody else to stand up and be clear and be have the ability to be a prophet. So totally, as they died, it phased out. I think we will go on next week with the Israel course of destruction, the 742 to 722 before Christ.